time pointing fingers and arguing about who's responsible, who caused it, doesn't really get us anywhere to solving the problem. The landlord and the tenant have to work together, but it has to be clear, and I think this bill helps make it more clear that it's the landlord that ultimately bears the responsibility. The tenant has a responsibility to cooperate, but we don't spend a month bickering about who's responsible and who has to call in the pest control. The landlord has to take that responsibility, and then the chips fall where they may.
Do landlords have to report bedbugs as we speak? Do they have to? Is there? You were talking, I think, a registry available?
It's an informal registry available. Now, Toronto Public Health can go in, and if they find infestations, they can put an order against the landlord. The trick is here, at the municipal level, is that the landlords will appeal that. It gets bogged down in the courts. Meanwhile, the bed bugs are spreading. So Toronto doesn't have the, individual municipalities don't really have the muscle that's needed here to counteract the problem, which is why I think the province needs to step up, do some overarching legislation that, puts responsibility where it should be, which is the owner of the property, and also, of course, funds so that these kinds of work orders can be enforced. Right now, we have all sorts of work orders outstanding, not independent of the bedbug situation, that landlords are not paying attention to. And it's just, a precursory kind of view of tenants' issues or what comes into every constituency office, and you'll see broken down elevators, windows that don't work, all sorts of things are happening in rental buildings that are not being addressed right now. So this is yet another issue. The problem with this issue, of course, is that it's not just the building that then is infected. It's everybody. And that person walks from their infected apartment, sits on the subway, the bed bug jumps from one to the other, it travels right across the city. So here's an issue where what happens in the rental unit becomes everybody's problem. Hence, I think it's Ontario's problem, our government's problem. We should be doing something about it.
You're creating a broad bureaucratic response to a few bad landlords?
Yeah, I don't think so because, again, jurisdictional experience. It's worked in other jurisdictions. It's a self-seeding, self-funding kind of administration with the licensing fee. So the licensing fee goes into this. And really sort of in terms of cost-benefit analysis, what is the cost to letting the bed bug problem go unaddressed? I mean, that's really the bigger cost. If we don't do anything to force landlords to clean up their premises, we're all going to be paying. And we're all going to be paying way more than a $65 licensing fee for a unit, $19 a year. We're going to be paying a great deal more than that.
Cheri, have you canvassed any of the Liberal backbenchers? You hope that this bill will get some support in the House?
I certainly hope that it will get some support. I mean, I hope that the government will make it their own. That's the hope of any backbencher on the opposition side. It's proved to be a faint hope over the years, but, I live in hope, so here's hoping. Landlord licensing is not a new idea. It's been around for decades now. It's in other jurisdictions. It's working. Why don't we do something like that here? And even landlords that I've spoken to, good landlords, they want to see it cleaned up too, because again, the tenant comes from an infected building into your clean building. You've got to have some way of affecting the bad landlords here. And Carolyn, do you want to jump in on this at all? You
I don't know what to say. I think what I would say is I like what got said in your office earlier. The city, who's responsible, as I understand it, for housing now, basically, or for a lot of housing, needs backup. They need backup from the province. It's too big. And I would like to see, honestly, I would like to see the government, any government, who had more resources and financial and people to help the city or to help whoever is dealing with the bedbug situation right now, which seems to be the city.
You're saying public health should be responsible for that registry, or should it go through municipal and housing?
Well, initially, public health in various municipalities are the ones that usually are on the front lines here who are called in. Also, building inspectors, of course, from the city levels are called in. So, that's where the information is going to be gathered, one would expect. Where it's kept is another issue. Again, it's happening informally already, but certainly that information alone is not the answer, because that information alone isn't going to get rid of the bed bug problem.
Do you want BedBugs? Well, this information, is it, do you really want just the landlords to clean up the apartments without disclosing they had BedBugs? I mean, would it be a solution, like you clean it, nobody has to know, but it's, you still want to have a registry saying this apartment, this building is having bedbug problem?
Well,
You're gonna
I think it's
address that,
important when there's outstanding work orders that people
Know about it?
can know about it. And the city of Toronto has gone a fair ways to doing that. They post work orders on the internet on their site, but a lot of tenants don't necessarily go there. And also, a lot of tenants can know that there's problems in a building, but not see a lot of choices. They can't just say, well, I'll go rent at the building down the street because that building down the street, the rents are too high, there's discriminatory rental policies. There are reasons why tenants don't have really a broad choice, that if they see a problem, they can just avoid that building. A lot of people often get forced into renting places they don't want, which is why disclosure alone isn't really the answer. I mean, we have a buyer beware system here, and there is no real disclosure of anything in advance of, you see what you get and you get what you see, and if things are hidden from you, you have to deal with the consequences of that.
Yeah. I think also it answers your question. The approach might be a both and. There's nothing wrong with disclosure. I think that's probably a good thing. But that's not enough. It's not nearly enough. And in fact, if it's not backed up by something that forces the landlord to do the right thing, then the landlord will use that as a discriminatory tool against renting to tenants who come from infected buildings. So we can't make this about only disclosure, because the ramifications of that are not.
Plus, the cleanup.
We have to have some way of, ensuring that landlords clean up their premises.
And the licensing system, like the Toronto's restaurant licensing system, they have a sign in the window saying you pass and you failed, and something like that is a really simple, straightforward disclosure. If this place doesn't meet provincial standards, would provide that disclosure maybe without going into all the details.
I would say one more thing, too. I don't think I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't have gone and worked in the field, so I'm glad I did, but you shouldn't have to be afraid of where you live, and you shouldn't have to be afraid of where you work. And I got it, finally, because I was terrified of where I worked and could only imagine what the hundreds of people living in the building, not just me, lived with every single day. I got to go home. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Anything else?
I don't know much about bedbugs, but can you just catch bedbugs by walking in a building that has bedbugs, or is that?
They do jump, apparently.
Yeah.
So, even we, politicians, as we're canvassing down in buildings, walking down, especially carpeted hallways, are a little concerned. I think the bottom line is here, everybody in Ontario should be concerned about this issue, because they don't know boundaries, bedbugs. They don't know if you're wealthy or poor or where you came from. They're trying to survive. So we, in response, have to do something to eradicate the problem.
I think politicians during canvassing next year actually.
That's very important.
Thank you very much.